Everybody, I'm back, and as promised, I told you I'd show you how we're going to make this pirate wheel move and make it a moving prop, and maybe even put a skeleton buddy here. Now, since I've done a lot of this work already, I'm not going to show you the painstaking process of actually going through it and speeding up the video as I go through it, but what I'll do is I'll kind of dissect what I did to get this ship wheel looking pretty cool and moving with a skeleton. So let's start with the base, which I actually stole the idea from another video, which I'm going to hopefully have the link in the, if I can find it again, in here as well. So you could take a look at that person's video, because I got some great ideas from that I borrowed and used on this build. So let's take a look at what I did to do this as the moving wheel. Okay, let's start with the base over here, and quite simply, it's just a little triangle of 2x4s. Now, knowing what I know now, I would probably make this a little bit wider to support my motor so I could put my motor right underneath. But this will serve as a base, and what I did is I just took some fence boards and just threw them on top over here, cut a little zigzag pattern, and gives it kind of a neat little look here. The other thing I did was put this another fence board, which I've kind of rounded out and drilled a hole in here and set it up so that it's a little bit stable. Use this and of course one of those little shelf holders here to make it a little bit more stable. Now this part here, this is screwed in from the back, and of course it's got my 4 screws here to hold my motor mount, which I'll show you in a moment. But really, this is all that there is when we're talking about the base, and I think it'll look really sharp when it's all said and done. So let's take a look now at putting the wheel on here first. And so I drilled a hole in here, and then what I did is, to the best that I could, because remember I said I didn't center this. In retrospect, I would have centered, you know, each cross, drilled a hole in the center of each cross, and then my bolt would have aligned it all, bolted it down, then taped it to the hula hoop, and I think it would have came out way better. But you know what? It's good enough for me. So what I did is I just put this big long bolt through here, a couple washers there so it can spin it a little bit more freely, and that will fit right through. And since this is light, it didn't need a whole lot of support to go in there, but let's see what it looks like. What I decided to do is put this on the back end, so this will be on the front. So I'll just take out my bolts here. Now I left a couple washers here again to allow it to spin a little bit more freely. And so I've got a couple washers on that side. I only need 1 washer on this side to give it support. It also serves as another function, and that is to create some distance here, which is necessary not only for it to spin freely, because these are a little bit wider, but also for the motor. See how it kind of almost comes down tight over there. So I really need to make it a little bit tighter. And there we go, and now we've got some relatively free movement. It's not going to spin all the way around anyways, but I've got this. Now I could leave it just like this, but hey, we want this animated, so let's put a motor on this thing and see what we can do. You've probably seen some of my other props. What I've used for a lot of my other props is a windshield wiper motor. And what I did is I went to Princess Auto here in Canada, and they sell these little 12-volt motors, which are awesome because, one, they're small and compact, which is what I like. They got a little gear mechanism right over here, and it comes with this flywheel, which comes off as well. So I can pull this right off. I can't do it with one hand, but it comes right off. And what I did is I drilled a hole into one end of the flywheel and bolted down this little rod here that I had laying and kicking around, and now it gives me that locomotive offset. And so what I'll do is bolt this in so you can kind of see how it goes together. Now when you get these things, they don't come with a power adapter, and look at this horrible tape job that's coming apart. Well, it's been a couple of years. And then what this does is it goes to a 12-volt adapter, and you can pick these up at any thrift store for a couple dollars. So this thing only costs $10, which is relatively the same, or maybe even cheaper depending on what type you get of a windshield wiper motor. So I thought the cost was really good for $10. It's got a bit of torque in there, not too much, and a couple bucks for this, so $12, gets you this thing animated. And of course, if you got one of these laying around, you know, a little rod or a PVC pipe or anything like that, you can just use anything that's going to just kind of be rigid, and you know, even a piece of dowel or flat wood would do. So let me hook this all up into those 3 bolts that I talked about earlier. I did make a mistake at the very beginning in putting this together, is not getting that adjustment right. Then remove the flywheel, and this allows me to take this little tiny motor and mount it and hide the wires behind here. And the first time I did this, I had this way too low, and it was, I forgot about the flywheel, and it hit the bottom. So we're going to put it in our new adjustments here, which are a little bit higher up, and just bolt it down. And I only need 3 on this one because it's not a lot of torque, it's not moving a lot of stuff, and that will make it easy. Obviously, I've already assembled this. So what you're seeing is how it's disassembled and put away for after Halloween. So you see that it can kind of come apart into just some easy foldable pieces, and then put away. Even though it's big prop, it's not going to take up a lot of room in storage. And so there we go. We've got 2. The nice thing is the motor's a little bit protected, and there's nothing actually showing here that could get caught up on material or anything like that. So I'll just toss that to the side. Now we just have to put our flywheel back up and find out where that goes. It goes this way. There we go. And of course, I just put a couple screws. Now I tried different holes here. That's why I've got a bunch of them here to try to figure out what would give me the best movement. A little bit closer was kind of neat, but it jerked it too much. And I was afraid it wasn't going to last all of Halloween with all that jerking and probably pull some of the prop apart. So I didn't want that to happen on me. At least I'm thinking of running this a little bit more than just on Halloween day. So I needed it to last. So I needed more and more smoother movement, which is why I opted for this. And of course, I don't need to tighten that up too much. It's not going to come loose. So it's just a screw, and there we go. And I'm going to plug that in and kind of show you a close-up of that working, so you can kind of see what that looks like. Now you see the motor attached there, and because the flywheel's offset, pushing and pulling on this rod here, you can kind of see it turning. And it can run like this weeks, maybe all year, in fact, depending on what kind of weather we get. So it's working pretty good. Let's take a look at what it looks like from this side, and you can see that that is very much like a haunted wheel. You could just leave it like this. I think is kind of neat. Notice I painted the bar black because I might have a black backdrop. I say that 3 times real fast, so that it's indistinguishable from the rod. But we'll see what I can do with that. But I think I'm going to have a pirate captain on here. To do so, what I did is I'm going to use PVC and to give it the skull, or the skeleton I should say, some rigid support. So I drilled a couple holes because I thought maybe I'd have them a little bit closer, and it turned out he needs to be a little bit farther away. And I still got room here to put, I'm thinking of a mast with maybe a black sail, so that again it hides some of the black in there. Now the PVC that I'm using, it wasn't rigid enough. It would kind of flop around as his arms on the thing. So I put a little bracket here. I don't know where I found this, but I just bent some metal and said I'm going to make this a bracket, drilled a hole here, and this will go into the PVC pipe, which is holding the skeleton for like $10. It's one of those that you see in the Halloween Home Depots and Walmarts and stuff like that. I got him for 10 because his hip was broken, but I just put some wire across it because I don't need him to support himself, and the hip's going to be hidden by some clothes anyways. So what I did is I just took some shorts and cut them up, and this isn't because it's going to be outdoors, and here in Canada it can rain, it can snow. I don't want this material to get heavy and wet, and so what I did is I took an old shower curtain and I just hot glue gunned it into a t-shirt, shredded it, or a shirt, and shredded it up, and that way if it gets wet, no big deal. I used a white garbage bag on my other one. Now what else I did with this is, you'll notice that you'll start to see some of the little ties here. I took a PVC pipe. I put a little, I found this I had laying around. It's got a little thread on there, and a little lip. And I thought that would hold it, but it didn't. I think this is just some conduit for some wiring and stuff. But it did manage to hold onto here really nice. Gives it a little bit of thickness. Like I said, I'm going to screw it with the bracket to give it more stability. So I ran the pole up to about midway on his torso and across his back. And then I took these zip ties, zip tied it along the back. And so this way, you know, he's pretty rigid, or she, I don't know. And at the same time, the legs can bend, and gives it some flexibility. And the nice thing about this is I can kind of screw it in a little bit, not too much, mind you. And I've got to kind of get the legs bent a little to be able to do that. So I measured this out so that I had the right height. Trying to do this with one hand isn't exactly the easiest. And so what I'm going to do is just screw it down there, and then put that. Now that I've got that bracket on there, and the nice thing is it does screw in a little bit with that little conduit thing, so it does give it a little bit more structural strength. But there we go. Now we've got our skeleton kind of kicking back and relaxing. But hey, that's not good enough. So the next thing I need to do is get his hands positioned on the wheel. And I used another twist tie to secure his hand there, and I'll get that in a moment. And then I just let this one rest right on there, and it seems to do a pretty good job. But let me secure this one hand. Boom! As you can see, I just put a little twist tie in there, ran his finger through there, and it seems to be holding just fine. And now we've got a skeleton. He's not fully dressed yet, but he is piloting this. I like the fact that his hand just kind of sitting on top of that. It gives it a little bit of extra movement. What I might do is throw some wire in here so it looks like this is being blown back, and I think that would look really cool if I could stiffen that out so that all his clothes look like the wind is blowing it back, so that he's in some sort of breeze or going through. But there you go. There's my skeleton pirate wheel Halloween decor DIY on the down low inexpensive. Pool noodles, PVC pipe, some leftover boards, a cheap $10 motor, a cheap skeleton if you want to use one, and boom, you've got a prop that's well under $50 and a lot will last a lot longer and looks a lot better, I think, than some of those store-bought ones. I don't know. What do you think? Give me some love. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.